morning and welcome to the Red and Ed Show, where it's always morning even in the afternoon. My name is Jay Edgar and I'm joined once again on the other corner of the stream by my wonderful co-hostess Elaine. Elaine, how was your week and how was your weekend?
It was great. How was yours?
Not so great. I went into what is quickly becoming one of my least favorite cities, which is weird because it used to be one of my favorite cities in the world. I had to go down and deal with some family drama down in Kenosha again, which they're still marching in Kenosha, I found out.
Oh,
the
interesting.
news isn't covering it, but yeah, they're still doing the BLM riots, and they were marching in my old neighborhood. I also found that out this weekend, so...
So what is your least favorite city in the country?
My least favorite city in the country is Boston. As much as I love the Red Sox, I do not like going into that city. I like the surrounding area.
So I hate driving in Boston, but I love Boston, the city.
I think everybody hates driving.
I love all the history. I love the architecture. I love the shopping, the food, the old graveyards. I love I love the surrounding areas. Like Salem is really cool, and yeah, Boston's great.
Yeah, I think even people who live in Boston hate driving in Boston at this point.
I refuse to drive in Boston. I won't do it.
I know when that was one of the things that we talked about over on when I had Sticks on, because he's a New England native too. We were talking a little bit about what was going on in Boston, and he had just mentioned the Big Dig in one of his videos previously to that. So we talked a little bit about that because that was just ending while I was out there. So yeah, it is. I love all the surrounding cities. I hate Boston proper. Oh, I hate Boston proper.
Yeah.
It's so crowded. Everyone's kind of mean, and it is what it is.
I haven't experienced the meanness there, but yeah, my least favorite city. I have two least favorite cities in the United States, and they're really close together.
Oh.
Little Rock and Memphis. I don't like either of them.
What's wrong with Little Rock?
There's like nothing redeeming about it.
I've never been there, so I can't say anything. I guess I've never been to Memphis either. I've been to Nashville.
It's also the birthplace of Bill Clinton's political career. So it has that going against it. However you say that.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, though.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the live stream. We are back on my Facebook page after my excessively long ban by Facebook.
Yeah, that was really, really weird. But
yeah.
Hey, maybe we'll stay on for a little while this time. I did theorize that possibly they weren't paying as much of attention until we started doing a long form live stream on there, and then they're like, "Hey, we got to check this out to make sure that everything is in order here." But
stuff that they found was like 2 or 3 years old, though. It was from like 2018 or something like that. And I was like, really? Can you just let me know that I violated community standards and then delete the post? Do you really have to impose sanctions? Who do you think you are, the UN?
Well, and we've got a bunch of stuff to get to this week, 'cause the news was all over the place too, and it's so weird on some of the stuff that's happened here, but we're going to get through all of it and more, plus a little bit of a news catch up here at the beginning here. But Biden gave his first, it wasn't really a State of the Union address, but it was an address to the joint session of Congress this week. I streamed it live with Quest Fanning. I invited you, but you had some other stuff going on, and I got to see some adorable pictures up out of it too, but... with that, Quest and I sat down and looked at it. There are surprisingly few video clips about the speech out there, but it was definitely an interesting one. We were pointing out all the times he lied, but we'll talk a bit about what happened there, some of the speeches that came immediately after that, and Tim Scott's rebuttal of this, in which the trend Uncle Tim started going around Twitter, because Twitter is a cesspool at this point here. The census data is in. And the Congressional Apportionment is happening here, so we'll talk about the big winners and the big losers in that, including a little bit about crossing our fingers, and maybe somebody's New York district is going to disappear this year or next year. It'll be all that and more. Liz Cheney is in the news this week because she's teasing possibly going for the presidency, and Caitlin is officially going to be running for the governess of California. So we'll talk a bit about that. And one controversial phrase that she brought out over the weekend that really raised a bunch of eyebrows Kamala Harris's book was found in a welcome package for children in California. She is denying any involvement in this, but we'll talk a bit about what's going on there. A little bit of a police and shooting updates for us to go over, including another mass shooting, so called, in my neck of the woods up in Green Bay that just happened over the weekend as well. So we'll talk about that. The Maricopa County audit is in full swing, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And the Afghanistan withdrawal is running into some rocky territory as well, and maybe that won't happen at all after all. Plus, I've got a little bit of surprise stupidity to close out the show because it's going to be a good one. It's going to be all this and more over on the little podcast that could. We are streaming live right now to YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Periscope, and both of our personal, or our, I'm sorry, not our personal pages, but our Facebook pages at this point. So if you want to check out any of the other platforms, they are linked in all the descriptions. So head on over to any one of them. Those of you on YouTube and Twitch will see a few links flying around in the chat as we go along. So you can join our Discord and our Guilded, or throw us a couple bucks if you think we're doing a good job as well. And we might expand those out to the DLive and the Facebook chats as well. So look forward to that coming up here in the near future as well. Otherwise, if you can't catch us live, you can catch us back on demand over here and over on BitChute.com. Go check those out, or check out the audio platforms: iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and leave that 5-star rating on iTunes if you think we're doing a good job as well, because that helps us overcome the algorithms. And I promise, now that we are done with the charity stream, $1,887 by the way, which was great. I turned that in after the show last week. I will get caught back up on the audio platform, including you had an appearance on another show too that'll be coming up in bonus content as well.
I did, yeah. That was on my Facebook page last week. I'll probably repost it a couple of times because it was actually a really great conversation, which I kind of expected it to be because it was with the one and only Larry Sharp. So I was on the Sharp Way with Larry Sharp. We talked about world government structures, history. We talked about our favorite historical figures, our favorite kind of time periods in history, why it's important to take lessons from history and different things like that. Also, we had a funny moment where we both agreed that you can find better teachers on YouTube with more accurate information than you can in most public high schools. So all in all, it was a great conversation. So you can find that on Larry's page, and I also shared it on mine a couple of days ago, so you might scroll back a little bit, but we'll have that ready. Ed will have that ready for bonus content soon on our platforms.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we got to get into some of this stuff here. So looking at this, one of the big ones that happened over the weekend here is that the Biden administration has promised to return billions in border wall funding that Trump diverted away from the Pentagon. So the battle for the wall is over, and just looking at some of the other stuff that's going on, it does look like there's going to be some tearing down of the wall as well, based on some of the things that are going on, floodplains and whatnot that's going on in Texas right now. But according to ABC News, the Biden admin is returning to the Pentagon billions in funds diverted by President Trump to build the wall at the southwestern border, and plans to cancel all related construction contracts, an administration official told ABC News on Friday. Border wall construction under the previous administration tied up more than $14 billion in taxpayer funds, shortchanged our military, and diverted attention away from the genuine security challenges like human traffickers. Rushed and haphazard wall construction also resulted in serious life, safety, and environmental issues, the official said. It does look like they will also be looking into some levees along the Rio Grande Valley. The floodplain is a bit damaged at this point, so did you see anything on this one?
Last I saw, we were still getting a wall.
Yeah, I know they were talking about that, and Mayorkas was even coming up and saying, but over the weekend it does look like they have backed down on that, and they will be stopping all the construction on it.
Okay.
And giving all that money back to the Pentagon, where they can continue to bomb brown kids in the Middle East.
Yep, pretty much. So we're just going to continue the foreign policy that makes people want to flee their country and come to ours to begin with.
Yeah.
Yay! The cycle continues.
We have passed a xenophobic travel ban on India as of this week. Okay. Reading from NPR, U.S. will impose new ban on travel from India as coronavirus rages. The Biden admin is set to enact a travel ban on any non-U.S. citizen or permanent residents coming from the country of India, as multiple coronavirus variants have driven India's COVID-19 outbreak to troubling new heights. The policy will take effect starting on Tuesday, the White House said.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have seen some of the images coming out of India in the last week, but they are very disturbing.
I haven't seen any of the images, but I have looked at. I've just looked at the fact and some of the demographics. I mean, they're packed in there kind of like sardines over in India, not like
In the major
anywhere.
metro areas, yes. I mean, they do still have large areas of rural populations too, but
Mhm.
obviously those are much more spread out. But no, it's pretty sad. If you have a sensitivity to seeing bodies and things like that, don't Google it. It's pretty nasty.
I would have to, because I mean, you hear some of the stories off this, even in comedy shows. Like I remember in Big Bang, Raj was talking about the fact that he comes from a country where there's poop in the streets and people worship cows. So then
Yeah, and
throw
they
coronavirus on
bathe
top of that.
in the Ganges River, and it's not clean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But I do also remember how xenophobic it was to ban travel from China, and here we are. I got one here from the New York Post. The feds have raided an Alaska spa in search of Nancy Pelosi's missing laptop.
what?
Federal agents raided a small resort in Homer, Alaska this week, telling the owners they were on the hunt for a laptop stolen out of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office during the January 6th Capitol Selfie Fest.
Oh, gotcha. Wasn't that sold online?
Far as I know, it hasn't been, but that doesn't mean that it actually hasn't been. Just as far as I know, it hasn't been.
Okay.
It
The
looks
dark web
like
is full of strange and mysterious things.
yes, they are, and their mystery is only exceeded by their power. Yes, I have seen that movie.
I've seen the dark web.
It appears that they came to this spa with a photo of the owner. I'm sorry, a photo of a woman who looks similar to the owner, and the owner and her husband actually were at the Selfie Fest as well. So I don't know if they breached the building or not. They claimed that they didn't breach the building at all, and that it was a case of mistaken identity. But yeah, they went up to Alaska, all the way up there, and raided this little spa in this little town up there. So
Interesting.
they really want that laptop back. I got an interesting one for you because you're about the same age as I am, and
I
you
am
probably
younger.
remember.
Thank you very much.
Not by very much. You're my sister's age, I thought,
Still younger.
which meant that you and I would have been in high school at the same time, just on opposite ends of the high school.
I am still younger.
But you remember how big Abercrombie was back at the time,
Oh,
and who
God,
was wearing
unfortunately.
Abercrombie? Well, Orrin Cass put this tweet out here in response to Rob Rosso's tweet. Both blue checks, both people I have no idea who the hell they are. Rob Rosso tweeted out, "Free daycare is bad and no one wants it or likes it, according to this study from the Exxon Citibank Small Business Institute of Personal Freedom." And Orrin Cass quote tweeted this saying, "Angsty teens who think they'll be sticking or who think that they're sticking it to the man by wearing Abercrombie grow up to be lefties who think that free daycare sticks it to the suits." Elaine, who was wearing Abercrombie when we were in high school?
The
Because
preppy people that ran the school, basically, all the cheerleaders and football players.
yeah, it definitely wasn't the people who were on the fringes of society who grew up to be Antifa. I can tell you that.
No.
The people who were wearing Abercrombie grew up to be the man, the
Yeah,
suits.
pretty much. hmm Most of the time.
So I thought that you would find that just a little bit entertaining through that.
It is pretty funny, yeah.
All right, what else do we have? I got this one here from Fox, which is going to autoplay in just a second. Houston police. Yep, there it goes. Shut up, you. Houston police uncovered disturbing human smuggling case with more than 90 people trapped in a home, and this was quite interesting here. So it looks like they were going in and investigating a kidnapping in a fairly huge house in Houston. What is it? 2,319 square foot home with 5 bedrooms in Houston, and
It's
they
not
found
that big, though.
90 people in there.
That's nuts.
Multiple people inside reported possible coronavirus symptoms because, of course, that has to be at the forefront of the news. So they're looking at ways to quarantine these people, looking at the origins of this. But this does look to be, it doesn't look like it's trafficking, as there don't appear to be the telltale signs of human slavery or sex trafficking, where it's not a bunch of young women or kids. It's more
Okay.
of a probably regular young adult males, maybe 20s, maybe even up into the 30s. It looks like so.
So
It
like
looks like they're
like
just.
a migrant worker kind of crash pad type of
That's
deal.
what I'm thinking it
Okay.
is.
But
The article doesn't
men
say.
can be trafficked too. Young men can be trafficked as well.
It's not as common is the thing.
No, but it definitely happens.
Yeah. The article doesn't say what the purpose was for the smuggling, but yeah, it looks like it was a migrant worker thing. That's the way I would guess it if I looked
Okay.
at this and the facts that were on the ground for this.
Hopefully it's not trafficking. Hopefully everybody that was there because they wanted to be. But
Yeah,
it is disturbing that there's 90 of them packed in a house.
a 2,400 square foot house too. That's
Yeah,
a
I
lot
mean
of people.
that means like your living room is full of bunk beds and stuff like that. And like people are sleeping in closets and you know what I mean? Like every single available space is made into a bed.
Yeah, I could make a really really stereotypical joke off that, but
Please
I
don't.
do want to stay on YouTube for a little while
No,
yet.
let's not. Let's not go there.
Did you see that Elon Musk is going to be on SNL coming up with Miley
Uh,
Cyrus?
Much to the cast's dismay, I've seen. They do not want him there, and apparently they're not going to be forced to perform with him.
Oh, you've read ahead in the stack. Yes, from The Hill, SNL cast members who object to Elon Musk won't be forced to appear on the show with him. And I do have to wonder who's going to be at the end at this point when he's leading everybody out at this point. I know Adie Bryant has come out and already said that she doesn't want to be cast with him at this point. There was another one on here. Bowen Yang was also fairly upset about this. So yes, Lauren Michaels has come out and said that nobody has to go and perform with him if they don't want to.
Interesting.
Uh,
They've had much more distasteful people host SNL over the years, but it's funny that they choose Elon to get upset about.
yeah, I know. I remember one of the tweets that were surrounding this was pointing out the fact that they had Cardi B on like a couple weeks after she admitted to the fact that she was drugging and robbing from men,
Hmm.
and everybody went out and performed with her.
Yeah,
The CDC.
somebody in the live chat said Dogecoin is going to go up at least 10% after his appearance, and I think you're probably right.
I hope you're right, because I have Doge.
To the moon, to the moon.
Did you see that we're getting new guidance for masks at this point? You're
I
allowed to
did.
go outside without a mask if you've been vaccinated at this point, according to the CDC. I don't know why the hell you ever stopped, but
Yeah, I wasn't aware that that was a thing.
apparently it was. So yeah, it's they came out and they made that, and it was just well, I've been doing that since all this shit began. So I don't even wear a mask at work anymore. And I think I told you about this last week, but they took the signs out of the local Quick Trip too, and I don't wear one there either. The
Yeah,
ones in the city I still do, but
if you follow me on Twitter, you see that I went to a brewery on Friday night for dinner, and their sign in the door said masks are recommended, but I think it said like, but make your own decisions, or um, you know, it's still your choice or something like that. But um, so yeah, I was pretty happy to see that. Of course, they're outside of the major metro areas, so they have a little bit more flexibility with that. The major metro areas are still very locked down.
yeah. So there's that. The Supreme Court is going to be taking up a major case over the right to carry guns outside the home coming up in the near future, and they're actually going to be doing another one. But I do have to talk to you off mic about that one because I might have an interview lined up for that
Cool.
because of the free speech one. Because I follow a cheerleading coach on Instagram, so I think she would be the authority in especially that case as well, because it does involve a cheerleader who got bumped from varsity team.
Okay, I was like, not making the connection. But
I'll talk
okay,
to
I
you a
see
bit
what you're
more
talking
about
about
that.
now.
Yeah. But they are going to be taking up a major case over the right to carry guns outside the home, CNBC reports. The Supreme Court on Monday agreed to hear a major Second Amendment dispute that could settle whether the Constitution protects the right to carry guns in public. The decision, announced in an order, comes as President Biden faces pressure from activists to take action to limit the availability of high powered weapons amid outcries over mass shootings. Those in favor of increased gun control measures have expressed concern that the nation's top court, which has a 6-3 majority of Republican appointees, could expand the reach of the Second Amendment. Oh no! So it looks like they declined to take down or take a case last year, and they're going to be hearing it again. But the big one is the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Keith Corlett. The individuals and state organization are challenging a New York law that requires individuals to show proper cause in order to receive a permit for the open carry of a handgun. So, what's your take on this one?
You have to, what? They're arguing that you have to show cause?
Yes, New York State Quest has actually been instrumental in telling us about this one because he lives under that tyranny. If you want to have it, you have to have a permit to open carry in New York State,
But in order
and
to
you,
get the permit, you have to prove cause?
yeah, and it's not just generic self-defense doesn't fly either. You actually have to have a specific reason that you feel the need to carry one around. Are you processing this?
I'm processing the absolute freaking stupidity of that.
Yeah,
It's very unconstitutional.
yeah. Well, apparently it flew somewhere because they got it to pass, but they're taking this one up, and this actually could filter down to the rest of us as well, not just New York, but all the rest of us, because it will make a actual final decision on what your rights are as far as the Second Amendment goes.
I think if that does happen, you're gonna see a lot more states do exactly what Missouri did and basically say, hey, we don't give a crap about your federal gun laws. We're making our own state laws, and that's it.
All right, I've got one here from out of Connecticut. Fox 61 reports that Lamont signs a bill eliminating religious exemptions for school vaccinations. Governor Ned Lamont signed into law Wednesday a controversial bill that removes religious exemptions from childhood vaccinations. House Bill 6423, an act concerning immunizations, changes Connecticut's communications requirements for students attending pre-K through 12 schools, daycare centers, and institutions of higher education by removing exemptions that are not medical. So apparently in Connecticut, you used to be able to come out and say, I don't believe in vaccines because my church told me not to. And you could get away with not vaccinating your kid before they went in there, and that's out the window at this point.
Wow. That's
I
some more
see
unconstitutional bullshit.
exactly off of this, and I could see this one make it to the Supreme Court as well. So
I'm pretty sure it already has at some point. I think this has already been addressed in some way. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but for some reason, I think that a state already tried to do this and it didn't work out in their favor.
well, we'll see where that goes. Finally, I got one more here. Remember we talked about Steven Crowder's horrifyingly racist comedy bit over the black farmers and the stimulus money that they were getting? Well, apparently some white farmers were not happy with this because they are suing because they're not extended equal protection under the law at this point, which absolutely they are. White farmers sue feds over being banned from government programs solely due to their race.
Alrighty
Uh,
then.
this comes back out of the Blaze group of white Midwestern farmers filed a lawsuit against the Biden admin for racial discrimination over being banned from a loan forgiveness program offered only to farmers of color due to the fact that they're ineligible solely due to their race. You knew
That
it
could
was going to
have
happen.
that could have a lot of wide-reaching implications if that goes through. That could spell the end of a lot of programs that have affirmative action built in.
How so? Not that I
Um,
really think that's a bad thing.
because if you, I mean, I don't know the specific details of the case, but if their argument is that they've been locked out of certain things because of their race, then that opens the door for students to students to claim they've been locked out of scholarships because of their race, or been denied spots at universities because they're not diverse enough, and different things like that. Like, I would think that that would carry over.
Yeah, and I mean, we do see a lot of that as we
Because especially if it's a state-run school, not a private school.
yeah, I mean, Asians have been, partially picked up with that too because they actually have to get higher scores on their SATs in order to get admitted to some of these Ivy League schools
Hmm.
because they're trying to, like you said, affirmative action off this. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that actually, I didn't even think about that when I first read this article, but yeah, that actually does open up a big can of worms.
And if there are other departments that have specialized, I mean, there's the um, oh gosh, I can't remember the exact title, but it's like minority business owners. They have like specific programs and loans and things like that that they qualify for. It's like a whole separate thing from just a regular business loan, and different things like that.
Hmm.
Minority owned businesses, so it could affect that too.
Yeah, there are a lot of really really far, wide-reaching consequences for this, and I don't know where it goes, but we're long past equal protection at this point, especially when it does come to affirmative action, and
Hmm.
absolutely this could take a shot at this.
Yeah, I mean, I I feel like all you would have to do, I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I feel like forcing people to, or making them get into the habit of constantly putting their race on every single form that they have to fill out for
Hmm.
health insurance, and like anything, any kind of loan, like any kind of identifying documents, like when your child is in school, you have to fill out stuff like that. Like, I mean, it follows you for your whole life. You do have the option to not fill it out. But I think so many people are just like, it doesn't really, like, whatever. They just fill it out
Yeah,
anyway. I feel like that should just go away. Like, that just shouldn't be on there, because why would it matter?
and I mean, for one reason or another, it does. I don't know if it's just statistics. And I do have to wonder if some of this is just statistics, just simple statistics off of it.
Sometimes it is, yeah. And especially when some of those forms are um, built to be like anonymous, that
Hmm.
sometimes those certain categories aren't visible on the back end. It's just like you said, it goes into like a statistical bank, and it's not really used for anything other than to spit out statistics of, oh, this year at this high school, 34% of our students are this race and 20% are this race and the rest are this or whatever. And it's not necessarily used as an identifier. But I feel like when you get to the point where you're asking for that, when people are applying for government programs, and they all ask for that, then it becomes, you know, is the government racist?
Well, the government is kind of racist. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, I have a really funny story about this, actually, about those forms. I dated someone a few years ago who was getting a massage therapist certification.
Hmm.
And when you file to get your license from the state, that's one of the questions, is like, what race are you? God bless him. He didn't check any of the boxes. He put other, and he wrote human race, because he's like an academic and has like
Hmm.
no common sense. Love, just, yeah. So he sent it in, and then he's waiting and waiting and waiting. And he's like, why haven't they told me whether or not I've like gotten my license yet? Like, why haven't they mailed me anything? Like, where's my notification? Like, come on. Like, weeks went by. And finally I said, you're just going to have to call them. And he kept putting it off and putting it off. And then he got the form returned to him in the mail. And they basically had circled it and was like, this is not an acceptable answer. And he couldn't figure out what he had done wrong. He was like, I don't understand why they returned this to me. I answered honestly. And I was looking at it and I was like, because you listed your race as human race, not your ethnicity. He was like, I don't know why that matters. It was just very funny.
I'm actually glad you brought up massage parlor because somehow while I was
Not a
setting up
massage
the
parlor, massage therapist. Massage parlor is not the same thing.
Yeah, that's actually probably right. Because while I was setting everything up this morning, I actually blew right by, or not this morning, right before we went live, I blew right by one of the other stories that we had on the lightning round here because, and this is also from my neck of the woods here. The last one we have here before we get into the speech is a Wisconsin Democrat received rental income from a massage parlor that advertised on illicit websites.
Ooh.
And I know this guy too. I've met him before. He's spoken at my school. He was the representative where I grew up
Oh
on that side of the
no.
state. So I actually, and I think I know which parlor he's getting rent from too. Now that I think about it.
Yikes.
Um, the Blaze had this one for us here. A Democratic congressman from Wisconsin reportedly made thousands of dollars by renting a property to a massage parlor that advertised on websites that list spas where illicit sexual services are sold. Financial
Interesting.
disclosures from Representative Ron Kind of Wisconsin show
Mm.
he earned between 15,001 and 50,000 in rental income from a building he rented in La Crosse in 2018 and 2019. Now, I don't care what Ron Kind does for this. He's a prick on various other aspects of his life. And really, honestly, two consenting adults, you know how I stand on that one thing.
Hmm.
But the only reason I find, and I, you can ask Quest in the chat because I read this and I laughed for a good 3 minutes straight as soon as I figured out who it was because I didn't pre-read the article. I was reading the article live on air and I saw Ron Kind and I just started laughing for 3 minutes straight because I knew exactly who it was. Um, the only reason that I find this so much funny is imagine how much more press coverage this would be if this was Brian Stile, the Republican in my district.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
This would
barely
be
a blip on the
everywhere.
radar.
Yeah, exactly. This story would be everywhere if it was a Republican in any state at this point, but because it's Ron Kind,
I don't know
we
anything about him, so.
he is the representative for I believe Wisconsin is it's Wisconsin 3 I believe is that district. But yeah, that's the district I grew up in.
But not anymore. He's retired or he's still representing?
No, he's still representing there. He's been representing that
Mm.
since I was in elementary school. So since
Sounds like
the
it's time
early
for him to
90s.
retire.
Yeah. Well, this might be the end of it for him. I debated moving back up there and running against him at one point. I think that advance just got a lot easier.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the State of Dementia speech, shall we? So, did you see any of this, any clips on this or anything? I know
No.
you didn't sit down and watch it. I
I
invited you.
Right. I had some other stuff going on that night, and you gave me like 15 minutes notice, which is fine. But no, I did not watch it, and I went back and read parts parts of like what has been transcribed of it, not the whole thing.
Hmm.
Um, I have a hard time reading. I have a hard time reading things like that when it's very difficult to follow, and it was very difficult to follow.
It was. The speech was just a touch over an hour long. He came out, he did his thing. He came out wearing a mask. A lot of stuff about schools, a lot of stuff about his assault weapons plans, his gun control plans. He did briefly touch on the border, but he didn't stick around on that one for very long. But he also took a lot of credit throughout the speech for a lot of the stuff that came out of the tail end of the Trump administration, including taking credit for the vaccine program that's going on right now and the fact that we have a vaccine. I don't know if my microphone just picked that up, but
No, I didn't hear anything.
oh, we just had thunder.
Oh, okay. We're both scheduled to have heavy thunderstorms, so if you lose us tonight, you, you lose us.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. One of the things that really just got me off of this, I tweeted that out in all caps, and I said, "Did he just?" I said right on the stream. I said, "Did he just fucking say that? Did he really say this?" He was talking about the assault weapons bans and what he plans to do with this. He came forward and he said that the assault weapons bans worked in the '90s, which they didn't, and the Blaze talked about that. As
No.
he said in the speech, you don't need a 100-round magazine, man. A deer don't wear Kevlar vests. And I fucking lost it.
It's not for that.
I know. I lost it when he said that. I could not believe that anybody came out and said this as well.
That is
But we
not what that's for.
But there are some things to actually look at and think about when we are coming into something like this, including the fact that our houseplant in chief waited 100 days before he came out and made an address to a joint session of Congress. And it was only a few days after his first real speech to the American people as well. He hadn't done a press conference in almost 70 days. I think it was more than that. He hadn't done that. He barely comes out and speaks to the press. And I've got a couple of clips. There were surprisingly few clips of this speech floating around. Now, I could have gone out and, I did have to go down and do family stuff over the weekend, but I could have gone out and probably edited and pulled some back out of here, but I didn't have a chance to over the week. But that's one of the things is the media's, like you had said off mic before we started here, the media's really downplaying this.
Yeah, they're not talking about it at all. I mean, they're just like, they just moved on to the next thing. And it's for people like us who believe what we believe, that speech was very shocking, but well, not very shocking. Like we all kind of expected it, but I think we all kind of set the bar pretty low for this administration, but it's not even meeting that. I mean, it's worse than bare minimum of what people expected. But I think that just goes to show you that the left didn't have high hopes for him either.
No, they really didn't. I mean, I've looked back at that too, and it's just what were they actually planning on doing with this? Because this is another boring ass neoliberal who wants to do whatever the corporations want him to do, and he got the corporations to come in and do their woke bullshit stuff, but for the most part, he's not going to implement socialism as much as he keeps trying to say he's going to. And he's just going to keep giving away these little platitudes and not deliver on them, because otherwise he doesn't have something to run on in the next 4 years.
He's not going to make it that long. He won't. I mean, I don't wish him ill health or anything like that, but I just don't see that happening. He would be the oldest president that we've ever had.
He already is.
Right, but I mean, running again at the age that he'll be at, I just don't see it. This whole presidency was meant to set up whoever his vice president was to run next term. He says currently, I'm going to run next term, but he doesn't mean it. There's no way.
Did I put that picture in? I must not have. I saved it. I know I did.
He's setting up Kamala Harris for an easy run for what would have been his reelection, if he even makes it to the end of his first term.
Yeah, and it's, we knew that going into this too. I was actually a little surprised that he picked Kamala just by how historically unpopular she was off of this, but
the left is so far committed to identity politics that even if they hate the person, they will elect them because it checks off the diversity boxes that they want it to check off. Woman, person of color. And they're doing it because they want to take that opportunity away from the GOP. Not that the GOP has anybody that's really great that could go up against Kamala or anybody else that checks those boxes. I mean, maybe
Nikki.
Dave Scott, but he's not a woman.
Nikki. She's Indian.
She's Nikki Haley? I don't think so. You mean American Indian?
No, she's Indian. Like Indian.
Nikki Haley.
At least half. Let me look.
I don't know about that.
I know she's not white.
Oh, well. She's white passing, which is not going to be good enough for people who are really into ID poll.
Let me look that up quick. Nimrata Nikki Randhawa to Punjabi Sikh family at Bamberg County Hospital.
Oh, interesting. I did not realize that.
Yeah, she is Indian. So she's, same, at least technically half same ethnicity as Kamala Harris is.
Right. I just don't think she's going to be that strong of a candidate.
Yeah, and one of the good news is that I took out of this past week is the fact that she said that if Trump runs, she's not going to run. That's the only incentive I have to have Trump
And
now,
I think
to have Trump run.
he's setting up to do it again.
Yeah, I know he was talking about bringing DeSantis on as vice president. Like, why? Why would you do this? The people love Ron DeSantis right now. All you can do is hurt him at this point.
That's exactly why he would do it. He's hitching his wagon to the person that gives him the best chance of winning, because for better or for worse, he divided the GOP. He divided the GOP between the establishment and the base. And there are moderate Republicans that will not vote for Trump again, or they will only do it holding their nose. So he has to pick somebody that's really popular across both of those groups to have any chance of winning.
And I can't even do it holding my nose this time, not the third time. I could do it the second time because of the fuck you clout and the fact that he could turn away the omnibus. That was how I justified the second time.
He could get away with having Ron DeSantis or Kristi Noem, I think. One of those two. Because then he could say, look, I stand for women. I love women. And you know what I mean? His weirdness.
Women love me, okay. I'm the most popular president with women, okay.
Gross.
Biden did take some time during the speech to talk about, well, basically blame the previous administration for the border crisis, which that's one of the things that he does. But what was interesting about that was Lauren Boebert, which weirdly enough, there were very few people who were invited to this, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert were both people who were invited to this. There were only 200 people who were allowed in the chamber, and those two both got in, which blew my mind. I couldn't believe that it was those two. Out of the 200 that were allowed, and there are 533 other legislators that it could have been, plus all the guests and everything else that is. But
they are. I would imagine that they left it up to each party who they had in the chamber. And so the party picked, we get 85 Democrats, and we get 85 Republicans, and then there were probably other special guests that were there. There usually are other special guests that are not part of Congress that are there. Or everybody gets a +1, or like different things like that. So it was probably the party, which means the party would probably have picked people that they knew their base or the media or whatever would want to focus on, they would want to talk about. So the Democrats are going to pick Sanders and AOC and Rashida Tlaib and the squad, because they always make the news. The news loves to talk about them. The right loves to talk about them. The left loves to praise them. The right loves to hate them. So those are easy picks. And then Republicans, same deal. They're going to pick MGT because she triggers the left. And they're going to pick... She's a plant, so... Right, and they're going to pick Lauren Boebert because she triggers the left, and because she's the right's, darling, pro-gun darling. And so I would guess that that's probably how that happened. It was probably the party that picked who went into the chamber after getting the number of how many people they were allowed to put in the chamber. Well,
while Biden was touting how much he was fixing the border crisis and how all of it was the former guy's fault, Lauren Boebert unwrapped loudly this space blanket, which you see draped across her lap.
What?
The picture's in the document. I know you can't see the regular stream off of this, but I did put the picture in. No, I didn't, because I just added the picture in right now. Let me go toss that in the document here so you can see it too. But yeah, it's up on the screen. Everybody else can see it. And yeah, and it was very loud apparently too. I read a little bit into the article for that, and yeah, she decided that she needed to have a space blanket on her lap while Biden was talking about the border. Hold on, let me get that added in here for you. All right, I just added it in, so it should be alongside of everything else. I don't know where it landed. Oh, there it is. It's on page 5, on the top. But yes, went out and put the space blanket over her lap, and everybody heard it. I mean, you heard it all through the chamber. Everybody knew what was going on.
Wow. Well, she was live tweeting it. That's the other thing. That's
Yeah.
probably also why she got picked to be in the chamber. So they're they're going to be picked based on their reach too. So not only how much they trigger the other side or how much their side loves them, but also who has the biggest social media presence and will make it, an event, get people to tune in, get people to talk about it, things like that.
Did you see any of the rebuttal speech?
I didn't watch that either because I had other things going on that night. But I saw the reactions to it and they were horrendous.
Oh, absolutely. They really were, and it does scare me to the level of racism the Democrat Party still has. I mean, the party of the KKK, and they continue to tell you
They
that
have
they're no longer the party of the
they've been
KKK.
they've been racist for 200 plus years. It isn't changing anytime soon.
Well,
They
don't you know that
still they
the party
still
switched in
cheer
1967?
bullshit. They still cheer their progressive heroes from the early, 1900s that were some of the most racist people to ever hold the presidency, ever. Even by modern standards, even by historical standards.
Yeah, it is a thing. Tim Scott was he was actually on point with the most of the speech, and I didn't watch the speech live. We didn't watch that
Hmm.
when Quest was on, but I did go back and listen to the entire thing. He had some really good points. I can't believe Tim Scott is not doing better in the party. Like I can't believe he doesn't have more visibility because I like that guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's looking for, and
Hmm.
he is looking for a
Not
more
as well
racially just
connected.
America. What's that? Oh, you froze up, and I don't know if it's on my end or yours. I appear to still be going. Well, let's give Elaine a second here. Oh, are you back? You're
Yeah,
back.
there you are.
Okay. You froze up there for a second.
Yeah, you were cutting in and out.
Let's actually have a listen to what it was that Tim Scott had to say about this. This is one of the clips that he had circulating around, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the racist reactions that came off of this. Maybe.
Today, kids are being taught that the color of their skin defines them again. And if they look a certain way, they're an oppressor. From colleges to corporations to our culture, people are making money and gaining power by pretending we haven't made any progress at all, by doubling down on the divisions we've worked so hard to heal. You know this stuff is wrong. Hear me clearly. America is not a racist country. It's backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination. And it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonestly shut down debates in the present. Today, kids are being.
That's what he had to say off of that. And yeah, he's right on that. They're being told. Critical race theory. You're bad for being white. You're horrible for being white. You're an oppressor because you're white.
Hmm. I don't think anybody should be taught to hate their own skin color, regardless of what it is. I don't care if you're purple.
No, nobody should. Unless you eat the wrong gum in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. That's the only reason. And that's because of your own regret. Because you did something dumb.
Right.
Well, we're having a little bit of connectivity issues, but we're going to have to power through on this one. But yeah, I mean, we looked at and we saw the fact that Uncle Tim was trending off of this, and they're basically they're coming out and saying that this guy is tap dancing for Mitch McConnell, which is that goes back to minstrel shows, that goes back to all this kind of stuff, and
Yeah, I mean, even the hashtag that was trending on Twitter was really obscene.
which one? There were a couple of them.
The Uncle Tim hashtag. that was
Yeah.
basically the variation of Uncle Tom.
Which I'm sure that none of these people have ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin because, Uncle Tom was a good guy in that book. So I don't know where they keep getting that as an insult, but they do somehow. Biden did leave from this speech, and then he went instantly on a tour around America, a bus tour, which he did a drive-in speech in Georgia, which, for the life of me, except for the fact that he's the most popular president ever, I cannot understand how the Secret Service allows you to have a drive-in rally. That just makes no sense to me, and you're frozen again.
I don't know.
Oh, now you're back. 1 2 1 2. Yeah, we're blinking in and out here. The weather is taking a toll on us here, but we got to power through. Yeah, I don't know how the Secret Service even tells you that a drive-in rally is a good idea.
I don't either. I mean, they must have had some kind of. Was he speaking on a stage like a drive-in movie type thing,
Yeah.
or was it televised?
No, it was televised too, but yeah, it was on a stage, and then you go and drive your car in. Which the only way I could think of is they just went out and dropped a few $100,000 at the local enterprise and just started parking cars in there, so it doesn't look like he's talking to an empty fucking crowd.
Maybe.
But even still, I mean, it is not hard to hide a gun in a car. If I was the head of the Secret Service, I'd be crapping my fucking pants every time they suggested that.
I mean, so I will say the Secret Service is extremely good at what they do. So they have, I mean, if they knew that they were going to do this, they probably took a month to prepare. And they probably covered all their bases, and maybe they scanned cars as they came in. Maybe they were required to consent to a vehicle search as they came in. Granted, that wouldn't necessarily detect everything with just a visual search and then like, okay, we need you to open your trunk kind of a deal. But
right.
That's kind of all I can think of. That and or dogs, which the accuracy of that is debated.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd say that the head of Secret Service would probably be crapping his pants. I'm sure Kamala is sitting over there rubbing her fucking hands and drooling at the same concept. He did go and he got heckled at one of these, though, because the left and the open borders crowd were not really happy with what's going on over there. Let's have a listen to what that sounded like. This was out of Georgia on Thursday.
And most of all, I want to thank you, the people of Georgia. We'll give you a microphone.
What are they chanting?
End detention now.
Folks,
Now they're calling him a racist.
Georgia was 100 days ago today when I was inaugurated on the steps of the United States Capitol to be your president. And I was looking forward to coming back and seeing these guys.
Yikes. They are mad.
I agree with
This is
you.
why they walk
I'm
back the
working
border
on
wall.
it, man. Give me another 5 days.
It's not good enough. Sorry, dude.
Folks, y'all know what they're talking about. There should be no private prisons, period. None.
That's
period.
not what they're talking about.
That's what they're talking about. Private detention centers. They should not exist. And we are working to close all of them. So, folks, look.
They're, oh my God.
Go ahead, you have the floor.
I can't. I can't with that. There's probably, I'm going to look it up just to make sure. But I would venture to guess that if we have the government detention centers are staffed by private contractors contracted to the government. The government set the terms of the contracts and is paying those contracts out. So even if a detention center, just like our correctional facilities, even if it is a government correctional facility, it's still staffed by a private organization. And then you have the ones that are private facilities with private staff as well that are still paid by government contract. So again, the government has set the standards for those contracts. And the government is the one who controls the traffic flow of people across the border. It's not that hard to figure out.
I think it was just a pivot. I don't think he actually knew what the hell was going on. I mean,
When
you
does
heard
he
the
know
audio.
what the hell is going on? Never.
You only heard the audio. I could actually see the blank look on his face when they're sitting there screaming at him, and he has no idea what to do. The guy can't think on his feet. For all the nasty stuff that the orange guy said, he could at least think on his feet. It didn't always turn out well for him, but he could at least think on his feet.
Yeah,
make a pivot.
there are 200 facilities across the country run by ICE right now.
I didn't think the number was going to be quite that high.
Yeah. 500,000 people plus.
Wow, that's a lot. The last one that I wanted to touch on with this was just going back to the State of Dementia speech and the ratings for this, because the ratings came out almost immediately, and there have been varied numbers on this between the Nielsen ratings of 11 million people to 26 million people watched, which either way was completely abysmal. It appears that the 2017 speech to the joint session of Congress had 36 million people. Now, the networks are coming out to try to blame this on people having news fatigue and turning away from the news. But really, like we said, there was no coverage of this. There were no video clips circulating around. Nobody's talking about this either. So I do think it's more. I don't think people give a fuck about this guy.
No, I think they're just like, it's going to be whatever it's going to be. Like, whatever.
But I did note that Breaking 911 put out this tweet here. They said, and I did some quick mental math after I read this one on the morning show. New CBS poll finds that 85% of Americans approved of Biden's speech last night. CBS surveyed 510 Democrats, 169 Republicans, and 235 independents to get this horribly, wonderfully scientific poll. And I looked at the numbers, and I crunched the numbers, and it looks like they polled 914 people total. And it was 510 Democrats, 169 Republicans, and 235 independents. But if you add the independents into Democrats, that is 745 Democrats, or I'm sorry, 745 people, which is 81%.
Okay.
So I'm saying that they didn't survey 235 independents. I think they just surveyed 745 Democrats, just by the numbers that they laid out.
Well, how did they survey them? What method?
I was not able to find a corroborating story from CBS. I'm just going by all I was doing was the numbers from what the Breaking 911 tweet was.
So, from my time being a data director, I know that we had issues with polls then. We conducted our own polls then. I can tell you that generally, if you conduct a poll and it is a landline poll, the majority of the people that are registered independents that will answer a landline call are usually Democrat-leaning independents.
Okay.
If it's a combination poll and it's a poll where you are texting people, which means you're texting a younger demographic, because typically older people will not answer texts like that on their phone, like they don't know how to. Also, typically, if you're doing a landline poll, think of the people in the country who still have a landline. Think of how old they are. My parents are in their 60s. We haven't had a landline in over a decade. They haven't had a landline in over a decade. So it's like if you're surveying people from a landline, that means that it's skewed way older
Right.
from the demographic side. If you're doing a text poll or an online poll, online polls are probably more spread out across an age demographic. But if you're texting people, it's typically going to be 40 and under. So that plays a part in it too. Younger independents tend to be more strictly independent versus Democratic leaning independent or right leaning independent, like maybe libertarian independent. Maybe they don't have the option to register as a libertarian in their state, so they're registered independent. So that really affects poll results too.
Well, I think you're right, and like I say, I don't see the approval for this either. I think just people didn't care. We see all these lies, and the 1994 crime bill guy, and the assault weapons ban guy, and people are just like, well, at least he's not tweeting mean shit.
Yeah, at least no mean tweets. Yeah, I think in a way, a lot of people are becoming more and more apathetic because they are just getting to that point where they're like, nothing ever changes. Nothing is ever different. Nothing is, nothing is getting better, really. We still have inflation. We still have outrageous government spending. Nobody's serious about shrinking it. Not even Trump, who everybody was just like, oh, he's going to drain the swamp and all of this other stuff. He didn't do anything.
He's going to drain the swamp, and he hired
anything.
Bill fucking Barr.
Yeah, and then on his way out, rescinded his executive order that kept all of the people that from the Obama administration from seeking a job as a lobbyist during Trump's term. He rescinded that executive order that was like a 5-year grace period. If you had been White House staff, you couldn't be a lobbyist. So he revoked that. So that means that all of his people he was playing for himself, period. That was it. Yeah. It wasn't based on principle. It was based on, I want to keep all of Obama's guys out of lobbying jobs. So I'm going to sign this now. But then I'm going to rescind it at the end of my term so that all my guys can go be lobbyists for the next, to compete with the Obama guys that now their time is up. That 5 years is up now. So it's very, very much playing for keeps, playing for what's my advantage kind of a thing. It was never based on principle.
You want to catch us up with a little bit of live chat here? And then we got to talk about this the census data coming in. We got a bunch of stuff to get through too, but
we have lots of live chat because we're on my channel.
That's okay. They're making friends with everyone else too, so.
Yes. So going back to our initial conversation, Travis Patterson from Facebook says LA and Sacramento are his least favorite cities to drive in. I could believe it. I've never driven in either of them, but those might shoot to the top of mine too. Ed says driving into Boston is nice. Downtown area is weird because there's no straight roads. I would rather drive in Boston 5 times before driving in or out of New York City. Agreed. Agent says new theme song rocks. Keep it up. Tim says public schools have gotten sad. I think we can all agree on that. Quest is here. Hi, Quest. Galt is here. Nephilium is here. He said xenomorphs stay out. I said that was the wrong morph. Kurt said instead of bombing brown kids, we should make an awesome water slide, parks, and Hooters restaurant in Coast next to the Lexus dealership. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, neither do I.
Uche says, I hope I said that right. Uche. India has 400,000 infections out of a population of 1.35 billion people. When you look at the rate per 100,000, it's not that bad. I don't know about that. Jim Bob says, North India is by far the most densely populated place I've been, and I'm pretty well traveled. Quest is making fun of how young we are. Agent says Shanghai is the most densely populated area that he's been in. Kurt says, when I was in high school, Abercrombie and Fitch was a legit outdoor outfitter. You could even buy guns. And then
Wow.
there was some discussion about they got bought out by the current clothing company, and that's when it like kind of changed over to being more preppy. Oh yeah, Montgomery replied to Kurt, different companies. That company went bankrupt in the 70s. Quest says, does the CDC say it's okay to stop wearing condoms when your pants are on?
Okay.
Kurt says you have to have a good substantial reason to carry in Maryland as well.
Yes, I actually did know that too, because our friend Darth Spartacus lives in Maryland.
Mm. Quest says, are the colleges going to open Chad studies departments? Aimless Gamer says hi. Glenn says, keep pushing, only X group gets something and the cards will come crashing down. Andy says, I always put Adam's race or Antarctican on those forms. Quest says his mother-in-law was thinking about using that she had half Spanish blood to qualify for affirmative action when she got her teaching spot at Stuyvesant in New York. Hopefully I said that right.
We had that discussion on Contemporary. It's Stuyvesant, because they
Stuyvesant.
corrected
Okay.
me on that afterwards.
So he says, I always list my daughter who has red hair, blue eyes, and skin as light as Elaine's as Hispanic because of his mother-in-law. Interesting.
Whatever works.
Yep. Aimless said, I have a hard time following Biden too. Kurt said, don't you know Joe Biden freed the slaves?
He was around back then, so maybe.
Kurt says Kamala checks off the psycho crazy box too.
She does.
And Damon agreed with me when he said maybe they're simply trying to find people to be in the chamber that have the furthest social media reach. Aimless said Tulsi was the only good Democrat. Totally agree. Kurt says space blankets capture flatulence. We learned that in survival school. Who Dutch ovened you? Aimless liked Tim Scott's speech. Kurt said, can we hate on people that listen to Nickelback? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're about caught up.
All right.
Barry's here. Hi, Barry.
All right. We have got to get through this, but luckily we've got a lot of small topics on this one here. The first one that I wanted to bring up was the census data came out, and it looks like there has been a lot of change up in as far as the demographic makeup of the United States. Several states gained and several states lost off of this one. And, it does look like, with the exception of California, a lot of the population right now is moving towards the American Southwest and the South. They're moving up out of the Rust Belt, which I'm not surprised by any stretch of the imagination, just looking at some of the things. So it looks like, as of right now, according to CNN, New York has lost one congressional seat, and they actually they lost it by 89 people. They came up 89 people short to keep their one seat that they lost. So now they're talking recount off all of this. Pennsylvania lost one, Michigan lost one, Illinois, Ohio, and West Virginia lost one, and then California lost one. They almost lost two. They were like right on the cusp of losing a second one. but they were to come back over the bar. Oregon, Montana, Colorado, Florida, and North Carolina all gained one, and Texas gained two.
I'm not surprised by that at all. New York and
Okay.
California have been hemorrhaging people for years. And I feel like it's just gotten more and more, the larger and larger numbers of people each year are leaving, especially in the last 5 years and even 10 years, I think. I saw a news story not long ago that said in the last 10 years, California and New York have had the largest net loss of population of any state.
Well, and one of the things that came along with that too is where the people are going. Now, I know a lot of the people and a lot of our mutual friends who are in California are all talking about going to Texas.
Yeah, but it's
Rachel's
not,
thinking
but it's
Texas.
because they are more libertarian and conservative, not because they are Democrats that are fleeing high taxes. I do think there are a lot of, I mean, if you had told me 10 years ago that Texas would be anything other than deep red, I would have thought you were crazy.
Mhm.
And now it's basically a swing state.
But they're also going to Montana. I know, being a former viewer of the Matt and Blonde show, I know that Matt Christensen does complain a lot about the fact that he sees a lot of California plates around there in Montana as well, which, given, well, and I suppose I'm only thinking of SoCal too, because that's really the one that pops up in the news, but I don't know what the weather's like in Northern California, or if they're, if it's similar enough to Montana where they can still go back and make a sort of life for themselves in a state that gets really, really cold.
Yeah.
But the Texas one doesn't surprise me at all. Florida is another one that popped up, another congressional seat. And I'm sure that's still a lot of SoCal that's coming out and going out to Florida. Colorado didn't really surprise me either.
No, it doesn't surprise me either.
The first state to legalize weed. And they did that, I think, after the last census, didn't they? The first time? I think it was
Yes.
11, wasn't it?
I think so.
So yeah, people
Yeah.
from all over the country.
Colorado doesn't surprise me. I've heard that from friends that live in Colorado for a while now. Yeah, legalizing marijuana became a big draw for people to move there. And I visited Oregon back in 2015. They were complaining about it then, like, ugh, we're just tired. We're tired of people from California moving up here.
So that's another California expat thing. I was actually a little bit surprised by Oregon. I actually thought that would have gone the other direction.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been enough to where I don't think it's affected their congressional districts very much, but from the locals that I came into contact with when I was there, they were very frustrated by that and felt like that it was driving up their property values because people from California had more money to spend, and so they were, building larger houses and overbidding on houses because to them, getting a 2,500 square foot house with a decent sized yard in California, you're going to pay $1 million plus or something like that.
Yeah.
And so in Oregon, when they can get it for $350, they're like, "This is my dream house. I'll offer you $375 because I want to make sure I get it." And that just drives the market up and up.
Yeah.
So, also big demand for new buildings out there as well.
Surprisingly, this is the first time in history California's ever lost a congressional seat. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did know that. It's not surprising to me. California's always been a very attractive place to live for many reasons. The entertainment industry is huge. The weather is nice in the southern part of the state. The mountains are beautiful in the northern part of the state. Yeah, I don't know.
But now, turning attention back to our neck of the woods at this point, because in the Rust Belt, your state and my state are about the only ones that didn't lose anybody.
Are we in the Rust Belt?
I am. You are too.
I don't think of Indiana as the Rust Belt. I think of like Pennsylvania as the Rust Belt.
Well, Pennsylvania lost one with people hemorrhaging back out of there. Ohio, and I think a lot of that it's the Union flight because after the TPP, all these jobs went overseas and people lost their union jobs and they either
Mhm.
went south to where they could go find work again, or that's where a lot of the factories are going out too. Is they're going out into the south. They're not coming back to these states where they had the big weather restrictions. Where they
Well,
can't transport.
not only that, but like Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, none of them have income tax. None of them have state income tax.
Okay, yeah, that's another
So
big thing too. So
that's a really big draw for a lot of people, especially now that people can work remotely. It's like, well, why would I stay in a state where I'm having to pay state income tax when I'm working at home and I can move to a state where the weather is nicer, it's warmer, I can afford more, property for more bang for my buck when I buy something down there, and I don't have to pay state income tax. That's like getting a raise, essentially.
yeah, do you think? And this has been one of the big conversations that's been going on with this. Do you think New York is smart enough to eliminate District 14?
I don't know. I really don't. I feel like they would I feel like they would eliminate one of the districts that was more purple, like from the northern part of the state, or a district that goes red. I don't know that any of the districts really go red. I don't know that they want to give up a safe Democratic seat. Because even if it's not AOC, it's going to be a Democrat. It's the Bronx.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that. I know that they've been struggling and fighting with her, as part of the reason I think that they might.
But again, they know that they can primary her with another Democrat.
That's her.
And if there's a seat that's at risk of flipping red, then they'd probably rather lose that one and divide it between two districts that are safe blue.
I wouldn't mind seeing the map on everything that they have for that, just to see where it goes. But that's where our country is shifting at this point. Got a couple other things that I wanted to talk with you a little bit about here. Number one, I hope you're sitting down, and I hope you don't lose sleep tonight over this one, because Liz Cheney is not ruling out a 2024 presidential bid.
Okay, have fun.
Another Cheney in the executive branch. That's enough to
thank
scare
you.
anybody. What's that?
I'm good. No, thank you.
According to the New York Post, she was asked about it directly, and she didn't rebuff the question. She just kind of avoided it off at this point. Yeah, I could think of a lot of other people in the GOP that I would vote for before Liz Cheney. I would consider Romney before Liz Cheney. That's how much I don't want to see another Cheney in the executive branch. And I hate Mitt Romney. But even he would be better at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
But Cheney, I mean, they're going back and forth with her at this point. It looks like she believes, and she's actually pushing for this now, that the January 6th Selfie Fest should be disqualifying for some GOPers, according to CNN's, what is this? The Point with Chris Cillizza. Wyoming Rep. Liz Cheney made no secret in her opinion that the riot at the U.S. Capitol was incited by then President Trump, and that her party, to maintain any sort of credibility with voters, it must acknowledge that fact and try to move on from Trump with all due haste. I think we have a huge number of interesting candidates, but I think that we're going to be in a good position to be able to take the White House. I do think that some of our candidates who led the charge, particularly the senators who led the unconstitutional charge not to certify the election, that should be disqualifying. So pretty much anybody who came up and said that they weren't going, or they were going to try and protest the vote, which is allowed. I mean, Democrats do it every time there's a GOP who's about to be president. That should be automatically disqualifying, and I honestly, that's a step too far for me. What do you think on that?
I mean, I think she's got an uphill battle. I don't think the Republican Party is super behind her.
I don't think it's so either. And I know that McCarthy is currently in the process of, you know, trying to oust her from leadership once again. This will be the third time that he's gone to do so. And really, honestly, I have no love for the former president at this point. But that doesn't mean that anybody who supported him should automatically be booted out of their seat either.
Right. Yeah.
Which it does seem that that's where she's going. And she's also going as far as to saying that Merrick Garland should be the one who decides whether or not Trump gets indicted on the grand jury. We talked about this during the second impeachment.
Yeah, that's not going to make her popular with the establishment at all. They are going to do her no favors.
Well, not only that, I mean, and we'll talk a bit about the Giuliani raid a little bit later on here, but there is a strong tradition of not going after your political rivals as the president, as the executive branch. I mean, as much as we heard on the campaign trail, lock her up in 2016. You know what he didn't do?
He didn't lock anybody up,
Exactly.
except for Roger Stone.
Yeah, well, there's that. But I mean, you don't, it looks really bad if you go back after your political rivals off of this, which it looks
Which is
really,
what
really
they
bad.
probably told, which is again, that one person in the White House whose job it was to run into the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, I know you just tweeted that you were going to do X, Y, Z, but you can't actually do that. That was probably one of the first conversations they had, like, sir, we have the strong tradition of not doing those things, so we think it's probably better that we don't. And I would think that based on how often the Republicans and Democrats work together to screw over the American people, I don't think there were probably some Republicans who really didn't like that plan because they knew it would come around to bite them in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely is that. So, yeah, Liz Cheney might, God help us if she runs for president. God help us, because we will be in Afghanistan forever at that point.
I mean, so I have an ulterior motive with that too. I think that there's somebody better that can hold her seat in Wyoming. So part of me wants her to run and wants her to crash and burn really badly in the primaries and then screw herself over trying to run for re-election of her own seat.
Oh.
Because there happens to be a crypto cowboy who's a very who's like a Ron Paul libertarian still in the GOP in Wyoming that I would much rather have in her seat than her. So if she has to fight a two-front war and run for president at the same time she's running for re-election, like pre-nomination, running in the primaries, and she's not able to focus on her district as much, I'm all for that. Ultimately, I don't want her to win the nomination. She's terrible. I definitely don't want her to win the general. But if it gets me Tyler Lindholm, I can settle for that. I'd be happy with that. I would not consider that settling.
All right. Speaking of people who are making it in their respective parties at this point, we talked a little bit last week about the fact that Caitlyn Jenner is officially going to be running for the ticket to go try to oust Gavin Newsom coming up in his upcoming recall. Well, apparently the former governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger, thinks that she actually has a chance. I don't know if she does. What do you think?
Maybe.
There are a couple sides to this. Of course, the star power comes with this, and the fact that
The
everybody
star
knows
power
who this.
and the war chest.
Yeah, 'cause she's got
She does have money.
and she's got Kris Jenner money behind her too. So
I don't know how helpful Kris would be, but if Kris was helpful, it would be because Kris felt like she could get something out of it.
and I think she's already thinking about that.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's probably already figured out an angle to make this work for her and the Kardashian family. And so she's probably all about it. Personally. She might not be publicly about it. She might whine and complain about it and say, oh, she shouldn't do this or whatever. But she's actually probably going to be in favor of it because it will put her and her girls back in the news and it will make them money somehow.
Oh yeah, and it definitely will. Well, and I mean, Arnold himself actually knows quite a bit about coming from an underdog position and actually winning as a Republican in California.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of the weird stuff that people have said about Caitlyn Jenner actually does. I mean, she checks a lot of boxes for California. A California Republican is not the same as an Indiana Republican. And it's going to be a completely different strategy and a completely different voting bloc for this. But I also know that they're getting their mainline feed from the media. The media is just sticking into the vein as, okay, this person's bad and we can misgender this person and it's okay because she's a Republican, and Joy Behar can come up and say him and, talk about all this bullshit too. So I do think the national media is going to play a role in this as well. I'm 50-50 as to whether or not Jenner can do it.
Yeah, I think so.
But one of the interesting things that came out of the Jenner candidacy was the fact that Caitlyn, who is a former Olympian at this point, weighed in on the transgender girl sports argument. And she said that it's not a good idea. She's actually fully against this, which surprised me a little bit. When former Olympian and reality TV personality Caitlyn Jenner announced that she planned to challenge California Democrat Gavin Newsom in the state's expected recall this year, many trans activists across the country were quick to make it clear that she did not speak for them. In a brief TMZ interview with Jenner Saturday, where she outlined her views on trans athletes participating in school sports, makes it clear why. When a reporter asked Jenner during an impromptu interview for her opinion on the efforts by some Republican legislatures to ban the transgender athletes from participating in sports consistent with their gender identity, she replied that she does not support trans girls playing on the girls' teams. She went on to say that it is a question of fairness.
I don't
But I do
disagree.
have to wonder if this is a poison pill for the candidacy.
It will be if you're left leaning, but not for the GOP, I don't think.
But California, though. Like for a national race, I could think that, no, this wouldn't be a poison pill. But for California, I do have to wonder.
Maybe. I don't know. In a recall election, does she have primary opponents?
I
does.
believe they're going to do the jungle primary again, just like they normally
Okay.
do.
Then it might affect it, but it depends on who else is running.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard any other names from the GOP side that have the personality that she has, like the notoriety that she has.
Well, and one of the things with the jungle primary system is it's entirely possible that you just get two more Democrats on that ticket instead of a Democrat and a Republican. So I don't know where this is going to land. I really don't. Speaking of California, Kamala Harris got into maybe a little bit of hot water, and then all of a sudden the news media was able to find a way back around this. So to start off with, Kamala Harris's book was found in a care package for children that were coming into the migrant facilities in, I believe this was in San Diego, was where this was originally discovered. Picture on the screen, you can see there. It is they've got the various toiletries, they've got toothpaste, some body soaps and whatnot, and there it is. Kamala Harris's book, Heroes Are From Everywhere, sitting right in there with this.
Mm-hmm.
It does appear at this point, and I actually gave the benefit of the doubt on this when I first found out about this, and then also looking at what the Washington Post had to say with this later on, but it does appear that this was not directly correlated to the vice president. That this came from a private charity donating books to go in there, and I don't know if they bought one copy or if they bought a bunch of copies to come back and put into this at this point. We didn't get any details. We only saw the one picture, and then the New York Post came out and talked about it. So I don't know.
Interesting.
And I don't know where I go on this, to be completely honest. It looks shady as shit.
It does, but again, if it was paid for by a charitable organization and then donated, I mean, what can you do at that point?
And the people came out and reeled about this thing too. Psaki tried to distance herself from this. The White House tried to distance herself. The way they reacted to this initially, they did seem guilty as absolute
Yeah, they
hell.
did. They absolutely did. And I think that was just a knee-jerk reaction because they didn't know. So I
Yeah.
think they were just kind of playing it safe and trying to cover their asses before they figured out what was going on with it. Also, Agent 2159 says, haven't those children suffered enough? Yes. Good call.
It is. I didn't even know she wrote a children's book until this news article came out.
I'd be interested to read it just for laughs.
I don't know. I don't want her to get the money. That's why. So,
Exactly.
but and even if it's a charitable organization, especially a charitable organization out of California, there's still I do still have problems with this because if it's one copy, then it's I have less concern about it. But if they went out and bought a bunch of copies from California, if this happened in New Mexico, wouldn't have even thought about this as hard as I thought about this one because it happened in California where she is that's her home state. And I'm sure she knew the charitable organization that did this. I'm sure she possibly threatened them with jail time. Possibly. Not probably. Possibly. So, maybe there was a truancy somewhere that they needed to have go away.
Who knows?
So, that was a story that almost came and went instantly. I want to talk about just a couple of these police cases that are going on around the news. Starting with the state of emergency that we're waiting on bated breath for in North Carolina. So, according to the USA Today, earlier on in the week, there was a shooting of another black man by police. There was body cam footage of this, and the state of North Carolina was braced for emergency as they were getting ready to come out and release the body cam footage. So, the mayor of Elizabeth City declared a state of emergency on Monday as authorities in North Carolina worked to redact body cam footage in the fatal shooting of Andrew Brown Jr. before allowing the black man's family and lawyers to view it. The family and its representatives plan on viewing the video at the Pasquotank County Sheriff's Office. Lawyers said at a news conference where they urged immediate release of the video. So, from what I've understand, and of course Ben Crump is there because Ben Crump is fucking everywhere. I swear to God, there are 10 Ben Crumps out there, and they just go around the country and show up at these sites. According to this, though, it looks like the family is saying that the guy just had his hands attended to on the steering wheel, and the police opened fire off of this, and he got executed for this. The police are coming out and saying that he was attempting to drive away. Looks like the car was riddled with bullet holes when they were done. The family was only allowed to see 20 seconds of footage, and that's really all the information that we have on this at this point. What have you seen on this one so far?
I haven't seen much on this one at all. It doesn't really seem like it's been national narrative, like explosion kind of thing.
Well, I do think a part of that is the fact that it hasn't been completely released yet.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too.
So, looks like they are still working to redact some of this. I know the family's coming out and asking why this is taking so long.
Yeah, and I think there's even more pressure for that after Columbus police released the body cam footage of that shooting so quickly.
Well, and I was listening to some other angles of this as well, and looking back with the Columbus shooting, I do have to wonder too who's going to be implicated in all of this. Now, from what we have heard so far, all that anybody sees is the police officers and Andrew Brown Jr. in the particular video. But are there bystanders in there? Are there other faces that have to get blurred? Are there people who could be called to testify in an upcoming trial for this?
Right.
So I don't know. I do have to wonder what went on with this as well. What led up to this, because as is most of the cases with these, we only get caught in once the shooting starts. We don't know what happened to lead up to this. I don't know if they were executing a warrant. I'd be wondering I do wonder what the charges are on this. Why they were talking to the guy. I know that he had a previous run-in with the police recently, but I don't know what this particular stop was for. Police are also saying that he tried to drive over some of the police as he was backing out of this, so I don't know where any of this goes.
I don't
Right
really
now,
either. I
right now,
mean,
all I have is his words versus his word.
yeah.
I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, I was just reading what Barry was putting in the chat. He said he thinks the Brown shooting is shady because the police are saying he was going to drive away and shot him, and he had a criminal record for drugs, and the judge is withholding the body cam footage. He said, I thought the point of body cams was transparency. And that's true.
Well, and once again, we look back at who could testify at this.
Right.
That's going to be a big one for all this. So we'll see what happens with that, and I'm sure if it fits the narrative, we're going to hear about it a lot more. And if it doesn't fit the narrative,
It'll get swept under the rug and we won't talk about it anymore.
yeah, this will be the last we hear about this.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of an update on the Arbery case that also got swept under the rug because it didn't fit the narrative exactly. Federal prosecutors have indicted the killers on hate crime and kidnapping charges.
Kidnapping. Oh, I
Yeah,
guess because they tried to put him in the truck or whatever.
Yeah, they were obstructing him, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can get behind this, but this, and I said this in the Discord. I don't know if you caught that the other day, but Midget was complaining about this, and I went back with it because, I think the hate crime was excessive off of this. I really do, because murder's already illegal. I don't understand why it's super secret illegal. But this was BLM's wet dream, was this shooting, because there was corruption inside of this police department, and they were trying to cover up for the McMichaels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because
they were.
both the McMichaels had worked for them.
Yes, and so that goes back to other statistics that I have seen reported for the very high, like unacceptably high rate at which Black men that are sentenced to death row and life imprisonment, how prosecutorial and police misconduct plays a part in about 76% of those cases. It wasn't sentencing. It was whether or not they were being prosecuted for homicide.
Right.
So, like, this would fit that. Like, if they had gotten away with that, that would have been, that's tied into that. You can't ignore that. You can't ignore statistics like that.
But there again, this story went away as soon as we saw St. George.
Mm-hmm.
And this honestly, with everything that was going on with this, and enough center-leaning conservatives were even on board with saying, no, this went too far. They shouldn't have been doing this.
Right. Well, it's really interesting to me how some of these stories get picked up and run with, and just it's in your face every day, and there's riots and there's protesting, there's all these things going on surrounding these cases, and then how some of them, like this one, they just don't, like, I mean, things are happening, but it's not, I don't know, there's not like this national narrative about it kind of a thing, the way that there was with George Floyd, Ma'Khia Bryant. No news stories, no updates about her this week, other than the state of Ohio is asking for federal investigators to conduct an investigation into, their police procedures and things like that. But that doesn't really happen.
Completely other terrifying side of nationalizing the police.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's more of an investigative and then making a report on your investigation and making suggestions for policy changes. And potentially they will divert the suggestions for policy changes to be made by the community or by some kind of community board, which is the smart decision, I think. But who knows if that's what will actually happen.
I'm not sure. But that is, that's what we're getting out of this. So we'll see what happens with this. I got this story here that I actually took from your Twitter feed, so you might know a little bit more about this than I do. Tell me about Tennessee's HB 1406 to ban no-knock raids.
Yes, they passed that out of the House Judicial Committee, so it's going to the House floor for debate and voting.
Where do you stand on this? So I think I know, but, for those
I'm obviously in favor of banning no-knock raids.
I read the text of this. I didn't see anything about no-knock raids in the text of the bill. Actually, I pulled up the bill, but I did see other various sides of this ban of
I
chokeholds
don't
and a
think the
redefinition of
bill, I
that.
don't think the bill mentions it because I think it's a repeal of a bill that permits it.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be in the new bill. It would just say repeal section blah, blah, blah of this other bill.
Okay. Where do you think it had? You know, you're familiar with the Tennessee area as well. Where do you think that stands as a chance for passage?
I don't know, honestly, because sometimes they do really good stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, it passed out of the House Judicial Committee, and if things are going to die, they always die in committee, usually, or they get sent to summer study, one of the two. But sometimes Tennessee does stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's my state. And then sometimes they do stuff, and I'm like, but why? Why are we doing this? Like the guy that's trying to tie in banning marijuana like permanently to where it would require a constitutional amendment at the state level to legalize it, and he's tying it into a sex trafficking bill. And it's like these things are one of these things is not like the other. And two, even if it's federally legalized or decriminalized, it would still take a constitutional amendment to legalize it in Tennessee, which is so backwards. So sometimes they do stuff like that, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then sometimes they do stuff like this, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what? It makes it very hard to predict how these things will go.
Well, we will be watching this, and I do hope that we see some more of these as we go along. A little bit of bad news out of my neck of the woods. For a casino I've never been in, but I've actually driven by before on several occasions. Late Saturday night, there was a shooting at the Oneida Casino in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Looks like it was a targeted shooting. So the person went in there specifically looking for somebody. That person was not working. From the details I've said, and they've been a little bit secretive about this, but they've let some things out of it. It looks like either ex-boyfriend of an employee or former employee with a labor dispute went in specifically looking for another coworker who was not there. And then he realized he was in a gun-free zone with a gun, so he just decided to start shooting.
Yikes.
Is what I gathered out of all the details back out of this. No names have been released yet. None of the victims are. 2 people killed, plus the shooter. Police shot him dead. Fourth person rather was injured and had to be airlifted to Milwaukee, and looks like is in questionable condition right now. Possibly at this point stable, but the last I looked, it was a questionable condition. So every third day since Congress got a fucking boner for gun control, we see something like this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so that, to me, that is a premeditated crime of passion, basically. Not necessarily a random act of violence, which is that narrative that the left keeps pushing, like, oh, these random acts of violence are just out of control and all these things. And it's like, but that wasn't a random act of violence. He went there with a specific purpose in mind, and he had a grudge against one person.
Mm-hmm. Well, and yeah, that's going to be one of the things. And you know, the Twitter rounds made their predictable shit. That Tiedrick asshole, whatever the hell his name is, Jeff Tiedrick or whatever. Oh, a well-regulated militia went into a casino in Wisconsin, and now I'm going to give useless thoughts and prayers. I'm like, dude, fuck you.
A well-regulated militia? That's not what that was. That was an unhinged lunatic.
Well, right, but it's the narrative. And then Shannon Watts was out there with her whole, well, Wisconsin has the loosest gun laws, and it's so easy to get a gun in Wisconsin, which is fucking bullshit. I've been buying guns in Wisconsin for 20 years. It is not easy to get a gun in this state. By any stretch of the imagination. We go through the same laws as everybody else does, and at some point a little bit more in some cases. But on top of this, and I don't know if you saw my tweet, not last night, but the night before when I first found out about this, and I said, you know, we need to stop giving our business to these businesses that designate themselves as gun-free zones.
Hmm. But a lot of times they don't advertise that it's a gun-free zone. It's just like part of their company policy. But
Well,
there
the
aren't very
casinos do.
there aren't very many businesses that post it on the door.
Hmm.
They might be gun-free zones, but without the sign, you would never know. And if you're not putting the sign out, you don't know if people are carrying inside or not.
Well, the casinos are actually fairly well posted, and honestly, for a casino too, that's pretty standard fare because they've got a lot of money laying around. So you wouldn't want people to be coming in and easily making it accessible for them to go and hold the place up at gunpoint until some lunatic comes in and walks past the sign and does it. But I mean, even still, even the imaginary casinos in Fallout New Vegas, in a post-apocalyptic world, are gun-free zones.
That's funny.
So that's pretty standard practice for casinos at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's some obvious places where you can't carry, like usually medical facilities, obviously the airport, like
Bank.
right, the bank, things like that. But it's like there was a uh, there was a laundromat in the town where I went to college that had a sign on the door that said, I think it said something like no shirt, no shoes, no service. And then there was some other sign that said no nuclear weapons or something like that. But I think
Apparently,
that was
Texas
more for a
banks let you
joke.
carry.
I don't know that they were actually a gun-free zone. I think that sign was just meant to be funny.
Yeah. So, well, that happened, and we'll catch up on that one. Did you see the Giuliani raid?
I did, yes. Shocking.
Federal agents
Shocking. I
executed.
mean, shocking, but not unexpected. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I don't know. Sometimes I just doubt that they're going to follow through on things like that.
Well, it's like we said earlier when we were talking about locking her up. You usually don't go after your political enemies like this. And I mean, I know that he was a personal lawyer, but he's still a political enemy. He did go to the Ukraine to try and, figure out what the hell was going on in the Ukraine.
Yeah, and he's not strictly just a lawyer. I mean, he's not some like person that's just always been in the background of politics. You're talking about the former mayor of New York City.
Yeah. From what it looks like, from what it sounds like, from some of the interviews that Giuliani did and some of the police reports, they came in. He said that he would have given the stuff over if they'd have given him a subpoena. He would have, and they would have asked him. He would have just given. He claims he's got nothing to hide. They took some phones, I believe, a laptop. I believe it was a middle of the night raid too.
Oh
It
wow.
was like a 6 a.m. raid or something. Yeah, it was a 6 a.m. raid. 6 a.m. Eastern Time. They also went after Victoria Tenzing, a lawyer and a Giuliani ally. So they're out looking for stuff. But, I mean, this whole thing just reeks of political vendetta, especially with Garland at the helm of things.
Yes, definitely.
So I don't, and I don't know if there's something that they're going to find either. Or if they're just going out there to try and come out and say, well, we can do this to him. We can do this to you guys too. And that does seem to be, Giuliani had the same thought on this. Giuliani, shortly after this, he tweeted this out. The DOJ in late 2019 covertly obtained access to my iCloud and never notified me. They invaded the attorney-client privilege as we were defending against the phony impeachment. These prosecutors violated the laws, not me. If again nothing is done, you could be next. So that was referencing what was happening to him back during the impeachment defense.
Mm-hmm.
But here now they're going back and they're, storming in. Middle of the fucking night. Searching for something. I mean, the guy's, 70-something years old?
Yeah, and we know he doesn't know how to work technology.
So, I don't know how legit this is or how much this was just political pressure off of this. But the most popular presidency in all of history wouldn't need to put political pressure onto things either. Just like you wouldn't need to have a fence around the Capitol area.
Right.
What was your takeaway from this one?
I don't doubt that he would have cooperated. I think he might have tried to withhold some things and then claim, "Oh, I didn't realize I withheld it," or something like that. But I don't know. It's going to be what it's going to be. I don't know
It
that they're
is.
going to find. I don't know if they're going to find anything or not.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. And I do anticipate more of this coming. That's my worry.
Hmm.
They're going to do the things that, Trump said he was going to do on the campaign trail. They're actually going to do some of these things.
Right.
We see the Matt Gaetz thing going on here, which I am 50-50 whether or not he actually did this or if he's being set up. I'm
Gates.
exactly on the line because that could go exactly either direction from everything I've seen off of this.
You saw my tweet about that the other day,
I
right?
did. I did. The hair gel one? Yeah, I saw that one.
No, the other one about Venmo.
No, I didn't see that one.
Oh, I said apparently no. Apparently he misunderstood when they said Venmo could be used to make minor purchases.
Oh, I did see that one. Oh. Which really, honestly, if he was doing that by Venmo, something that's traceable, he shouldn't be in office anyway. But it's the
Most
same
of
thing
them
with,
shouldn't be in office anyway.
yeah. Well, it's the same thing with a Bitcoin argument. You hear people coming out saying Bitcoin is evil because they could use it for sex trafficking or something like that.
What do you think
Why
they've
would
been
you?
using cash for?
Why the hell would you use something that's traceable that's on several different hard drives around the world?
Nobody knows.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Afghanistan withdrawal. Then we got to head on out of here. But I know we also had the Kerry thing that popped up over the past week. Did you see any of that?
I think so. The Kerry thing.
Yeah, John Kerry is facing calls to step
Oh, okay.
down right now because he went out and leaked a bunch of information about what was happening in, was it Sudan? No, it wasn't Sudan. What the hell was it? Syria. Yeah, Israel attacks on Syria, basically looking, from the sounds of it, to destabilize the region.
Mm, that's not good.
This was back during Obama's term. It was back during Obama's second term when he did this, but yeah. An Israeli official in 2018 confirmed that Israel had struck 200 Iranian targets in Syria, the first public admission of a covert campaign that was long suspected to be carried out. But yeah, it looks like this happened in 2011 that this all went over.
Interesting.
And they recorded him doing this and they leaked the tape. And he's still coming out trying to say that he didn't do it.
Okay. Good for him. But no, I don't believe you.
Yeah, especially when it's Israel and Iran because, who makes the money off of that?
He's so slimy.
He is. Al Qaeda has promised us war on all fronts against America as Biden pulls out of Afghanistan, though this is according to CNN. This weekend marks the 10th anniversary since Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of the September 11, 2001 attacks on the U.S., was killed by U.S. Special Operations Forces SEAL Team 6 inside his high-walled compound in the Pakistani military college city of Abbottabad. His name and that of his terrorist network, Al-Qaeda, came to define the era of U.S. Reaction and retribution, dwarfing any previous counterterrorism policy. Which, yeah, now they're in control of Afghanistan, and as we're coming back out, surprise, surprise, now they're threatening a war if we pull out.
Shocking.
The German military, though, is wrapping up all of its training missions over there. This, according to Reuters, looks like they've got a couple training missions that are going on in the area. They're wrapping that up, getting ready for them to pull out of there. So Germany will be back out. So it will just be the U.S. at this point. But, and I know you teased this up at the top of the show, Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice. Neither one of those are very happy about this right now.
Yeah, if you
You
guys
want-
don't follow me on Twitter, my comment about Hillary Clinton was that Hillary Clinton doesn't want to leave Afghanistan. And if that is not reason enough to leave, I don't know what is.
Well, according to Yahoo News, Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice told members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee that they're worried about President Biden's plan to withdraw all U.S. troops from Afghanistan, with Rice suggesting the U.S. may need to go back, Axios has learned.
Oh, of course. She has
Of
never
course.
met a foreign intervention that she didn't like.
And neither is Biden, by the way.
No,
He's signed on for everything, and these are the people that are in here. Plus, Connie Rice, who was what the hell was she? She was Secretary of State under Bush,
Mm-hmm.
which is another reason, another war pig.
Yeah. If they're all in agreement about it, there's a problem.
Yeah, they're Democrats and Republicans. They're supposed to hate
A
each other.
problem for us.
Yeah, they're supposed to hate each other, aren't they?
More of same feathers or same wings, same bird, whatever that saying is.
Do you think we're getting out at September 11th?
No.
Well,
No.
they might actually get pulled out, and they might go to Yemen because that's another civil war that's brewing.
No, my prediction is that when the initial deadline in May comes and passes, then
Which
the
it did.
Taliban,
2 days ago.
right, the Taliban's going to start retaliating against U.S. forces, and that's going to be the reason that they use that we need to stay.
Yeah, I kind of saw the same thing.
They're already running news stories about how the Taliban is taking back empty bases and holding people hostage and taking over towns and all kinds of stuff like that. So they are setting the stage for that.
Are you ready to hear something even dumber than this?
Hit me with your best shot.
You might have heard this one already. This one actually got pretty publicized. But I've got this story here from ABC 7 News. Woman charged with felony embezzlement for not returning Sabrina the Teenage Witch VHS 21 years ago.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. I did not see that. That's hilarious.
A VHS movie rented more than 20 years ago has come back to haunt a woman in Texas. The problem is she never returned the tape she allegedly rented in Oklahoma, and now it's landed her in some serious legal trouble. The first thing she told me was felony embezzlement, so I thought I was going to have a heart attack, said Karen McBride, who's now facing more than just late fee charges. It was a moment of disbelief for McBride as she was talking to the Cleveland County District Attorney's Office this week after she learned she is a wanted felon for never returning Sabrina the Teenage Witch on VHS 21 years ago, which she never rented.
Claims she never rented.
I had lived with a young man, this was over 20 years ago. He had 2 kids, daughters that were 8, 10, or 11 years old, and I'm thinking he went and got it and didn't take it back or something, McBride said. I don't know, I've never watched the show in my life, it's just not my cup of tea. Online documents show McBride was charged with felony embezzlement of rented property in March of 2000, but never knew about the charges until recently when she was trying to change her name on her license after getting married. They told me I had an issue in Oklahoma, and this was a reference number for me to call this number, and I did, McBride said. Meanwhile, I'm a wanted felon for a VHS tape.
That is so ridiculous. Again, the average person commits approximately 3 felonies a day because our penal code is so overbloated. Just another example.
Another detail on this case that didn't make this particular article, but this was brought up in the live chat when I did this on Contemporary, and I confirmed it, is that the business that she rented from is out of business.
Right.
So
So who is actually bringing this lawsuit?
it's not a lawsuit. It was a criminal case, and it's been on her record for 20 years. I can't believe nobody's picked her up in 20 years, where she could have at least looked at this and tried to figure it out and try to get it all done. So I don't even know what the next step is on this point, to be completely honest.
That's weird.
What do you do when you've got a 20-year warrant out for you? For something that for a fucking VHS tape of all things in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. It's wild.
Well, that's all I have. What are our friends in the live chat saying?
Oh my goodness, so many things. McConnell says I am categorically a turtle. I don't know what that means.
I think he is pretending to be Mitch McConnell,
Okay.
who is categorically a turtle.
Okay. Gotta find where we left off.
Yeah, I'm looking for the same thing right now.
Kurt said, "Where are we going and why are we in this handbasket?" Facebook viewer John says, in 1978 in Ventura County, I saw a car with an Oregon plate that had a bumper sticker that said, "Don't Californicate, Oregon." So apparently that's been a thing for a while.
Yeah.
Andrew said, "Ew, Romney is total garbage." Yeah, I think we can all kind of agree on that. Except Aimless Gamer says Romney Cheney 2024. I'm sorry.
Ugh.
Do you need, like, did you not take your drugs today? McConnell says, "How can I find this red district and how much are their rates? Asking for a friend." I don't know what that means. That was during our chat about the red districts in New York.
I think he's looking for a place to sell some of the coke that he smuggles.
No, stop. Also, I did look it up for the record, and I put it in the chat. For the record, there are 8 out of 27 red districts in New York currently. And there are a couple that are just like +1 red. So I would think that that would be a district that would be more at risk than AOC's seat, just because they know that they can keep that one blue.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I am not even going to address the pube chat. Y'all need to not do that here.
That's a conversation for the generational gap,
Yeah, not
Which
we
you
don't
yelled at
we
me
don't do
for.
that here.
which you yelled at me for in the live chat.
Kurt says "Goodnight Moon" followed by maniacal laughter. I'm assuming he's talking about Kamala Harris. Oh, and also when we were talking about the California governor's race, I did not mention, but Jeff Hewitt is the Libertarian running for governor in that race. And he is currently serving as supervisor in Riverside County, which has a bigger operating budget than some states. He is one of the, if not the highest ranking libertarian members in the country. I think he is since Justin Amash left Congress, actually.
Okay.
Barry says, with menthols being banned, I see more Eric Garner incidences happening. I totally agree. Anytime the government makes a law or passes a law, you have to remember that you're consenting to allow them to enforce that law up to and including upon death.
Yeah.
Because if you continue to resist, no matter what law it is, however hard you resist, they will meet you with equal and greater force each time you resist until it gets to the point where they kill you. Andrew said, "I don't go anywhere that doesn't let me carry except hospitals." Yeah, I can see that. He says they don't want him, Giuliani, to Hillary his emails.
Well, you mean like with a cloth?
Barry Anderson said they raid Giuliani and take a laptop, and it ends up being Pelosi's laptop. That would be very funny. Oh, no, McConnell, yeah, he's impersonating Mitch McConnell. He said, "Good thing I'm not a person. I am categorically a turtle." Barry said, "Think of how many libraries can go after people for not returning books after decades."
Yeah.
And I think we're pretty much at the end.
All right. Well, we're going to call that a show then. Where's this music? This music. Well, I do want to take some time to thank everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat with us then and came and hung out with us. We will be back here next week for even more stupid news because there's plenty of this off of this. Hopefully not a felony embezzlement at this point, but well, there's some other stuff brewing already, and I've already seen a preview of what I'm going to be talking about on Contemporary in the morning, which means that there's more stupid shit to come here. So I will be back here at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. We have a new start time once again, so come back and join me if you want some headlines before you get to work and you want some coffee time. Otherwise, you and I will be back here next week for more of the RedNet Show and more of this fun government stuff here. Plus, look out for the audio platforms because I've got some bonus content for you. We might have an interview next week. I do have to reach out for that and see what we have to do, and I'll talk to you about that as soon as we get off of here. So come back and hang out with us. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming here, so let's see what we've got going on with that. Otherwise, you can go check out my friends, The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The R-Rated Conservative, all members of the Freedom Scoop Media Group. Pardon our dust, we are finishing up construction on the website, and we will get that out as soon as possible, including a new way for you to donate and support our great creators as well. So look forward for details on all that as well. And lastly, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Elaine, lead them out with some words of wisdom.
Don't do anything that I wouldn't do twice.
Take care, everyone.